London is a city of two faces. One face is draped in the majesty of Westminster and the gleaming glass of the Shard. The other face is hidden in the damp, gray alleyways of the East End, where the air smells of salt, diesel, and desperation. Elias Thorne was born into the latter. His father had been a docker who broke his back for a pittance, and his mother had worked 3 jobs just to keep the heaters running in their cramped flat. By the time Elias was 16, he realized that in London, you were either the hammer or the nail. He refused to be the nail. Unlike the hot-headed boys in his neighborhood who dreamt of being roadmen, Elias was a student of systems. He spent his afternoons in the local library, not reading fiction, but studying logistics, trade law, and history. He understood early on that true power wasn't about who could pull a trigger. It was about who owned the ground everyone stood on. By the age of 25, Elias had moved away from the street-level chaos. He had established a consultancy firm. On paper, he helped small businesses with security and supply chain management. In reality, he was the bridge between the legitimate and the illegitimate. He became known as the Ghost of the Thames. He never touched the product, he never carried a weapon, and he never raised his voice. He was the man who made things move. If a shipment was stuck at the docks, Elias made a phone call. If 2 gangs were at war and disrupting business, Elias sat them down. Violence is a tax on profit, Elias famously told a rival. Every bullet fired is money lost. Why die for a street corner when we can own the whole street? The peace Elias brokered lasted for 3 years until the Belfast Syndicate decided London was ripe for the taking. Led by a man named Malachy O'Shea, a man who loved the sound of explosions more than the sound of coins, the syndicate began a campaign of terror. They bombed Elias's warehouses. They intimidated his associates. They wanted a war. Elias's inner circle, led by his loyal childhood friend Julian, was restless. "We have to hit back, Elias," Julian urged, slamming a fist on the mahogany table in their South Bank penthouse. "They think we're soft because we wear suits." Elias looked out at the London Eye, its lights reflecting in his cold, gray eyes. "They want a war of noise, Julian. We will give them a war of silence." Elias invited Malachy to a neutral ground, a historic decommissioned lighthouse in Greenwich. Malachy arrived with 6 armed guards, laughing and mocking Elias's gentleman persona. "You're a bookkeeper, Thorne," Malachy spat. "I'm a soldier. You don't belong in this world." Elias didn't flinch. He sipped a glass of sparkling water. "Malachy, you've spent the last month blowing up my property. You think you've hurt me, but you haven't looked at your own backyard." Elias slid a tablet across the table. It showed a live feed of Malachy's offshore accounts being emptied in real time. Another screen showed Malachy's primary distribution hub in Liverpool being surrounded, not by gangsters, but by the police, tipped off by anonymous, untraceable evidence. "I didn't buy guns to fight you," Elias said calmly. "I bought your bankers. I bought your captains. And 5 minutes ago, I bought the deed to the house your mother lives in. You are not a soldier anymore. You are a trespasser." Malachy was gone by morning, deported and penniless. The war had ended without a single shot fired by Elias's men. The underworld stood still. They realized that the UK Don wasn't just another gangster. He was a new breed of predator. He was the man who could erase your life with a keystroke. But as Elias stood on his balcony, watching the fog roll over the Thames, he felt the heavy price of his crown. He had no friends, only assets. He had no home, only a fortress. He was the most powerful man in the UK, yet he was a prisoner of his own making.